I did not. It was horrible. I did for me to get water. There is no water. It's kind of good. And then we think about how we're floating and why we're not
I can fix this. Good evening and welcome to the February 6th regular council meeting agenda. We apologize for being a bit late. Our in-camera went a bit longer and then we had to take a quick bio break, but we're back. At this time, I'd like to confirm the agenda. Are there any emergent items that any of the councillors want to present to add to the agenda? Councillor Peterson?
Your Worship, I think we have to put CSMI on the agenda, correct?
Okay. Thank you.
Wherever our boss tells us we need to put it.
11.1. Thank you, Your Worship. I recommend 7.3.
Thank you. And administration, do you have anything?
Yes, Your Worship, thank you. There's a number of additions. Council was handed out the additions on their desk today. So that was 4.1, Communities in Bloom, 4.2, Growing Family Society, and 14.3, an item pertaining to FOIP Section 24.
Thank you. And I have a motion to bring forward. Did we decide on what item number that might be? Oh, it does. 11.1, sorry. Thank you, my trusty assistant. Thank you. Are there any other amendments? Then I'm looking for a motion to adopt the agenda as amended.
I move we adopt the February 6th agenda as amended, Your Worship.
Thank you, Councillor Peterson. You've all heard the motion. All in favor? And it's carried. Moving on to item 3, presentations and recognitions. I don't believe we have anything for tonight, which brings us to item 4, delegations. And our first delegation that we'd like to welcome tonight is the Communities in Bloom delegation. Mr. Peary, are you stepping forward to speak?
I am.
And at this time, I must remind you that I'm supposed to tell you that you have a 10-minute presentation time, and then there'll be questions and comments for you afterwards.
Perfect.
Thank you.
I am here with you probably know all these people anyways, but Robert Breitweiser, Theo Owl, and we also have a new member, Mark Gooden, as I think he is so bored he attends these meetings on a regular basis, so he's here tonight to support us as well. So, good evening. I'm here on behalf of Communities in Bloom to present to you the evaluation which was done of our town last summer. As you know, for the first time in history, Strathmore received 5 blooms from the provincial judges. On behalf of Strathmore's Community in Bloom, I say congratulations to town and council. In the evaluation form, which you all have copies of, I hope, you will note that in the overall summary, the judges were impressed with council for its transparency, its planning, in particular the downtown revitalization. From our committee's perspective, we have to agree, and we would add that we appreciated the support of council throughout the year, but in particular on the day we were judged. From providing a van for the judges to tour in, and a driver, Councillor Peterson, to attending the banquet for the judges, answering their questions, And lastly, we thank Councillor Sobel for attending the provincial banquet to support us. I think Council knows there are a great many of your staff who worked very hard to achieve this historic result. On August 2nd, I acknowledge them, but I'd like to take advantage of the fact that this is part of a public record this evening, and so I'd like to publicly thank Carla Couts for producing an amazing community profile book, Craig Nichols, Donna McCallum, and their hardworking park crew, and lastly but not least, James Thackeray. The Communities in Bloom Committee recognizes that staff time to support this initiative was key, and we are aware that it would not happen without the support of our town CAO. We're extremely grateful for that support. This evening, I would like to provide you with the highlights of the evaluation and suggest that our committee would be more than willing to meet with council and administration to address some of the details of the report. I should tell you that we've already met with Craig Nichols and Donna McCallum to review the evaluation. Our overall grade was 82%, with our strengths being floral displays, environmental action, tidiness, and urban forestry. Our weakest areas were in heritage conservation and landscapes. You will note in the evaluation that after the marks page for each area, there's a summary page outlining the judge's observations and recommendations. Council should be aware that many of the recommendations are already being acted upon. For example, the judges suggested more waste containers, and you may know that many more were put out last fall. Lack of weed control on some of the commercial lots was noted as well, but the new City Works program, which you invested in, will help. Buy-in by business and commercial partners will be needed in order to achieve a better evaluation. Communities in Bloom has reached out to the Chamber of Commerce, and we'll be looking to them for their leadership in improving our commercial landscaping and weed control. Council's support of Donna McCallum means that we'll have a tree inventory and we'll have tree maintenance on a cyclical basis, both of which will improve our grade next time. Council will note there are things that they can do as well to improve our grade in the future. Heritage conservation will require Council to consider what strategic planning will be needed to preserve both natural areas and heritage buildings. The judges were impressed with the leadership of Council in encouraging citizen participation in all areas judged. Council will need to consider asserting the same leadership with our commercial and business partners. The town entry and corridor along the Trans-Canada Highway was acknowledged by the judges as a challenge. Communities in Bloom, however, believes that a few things could be done by the town and businesses to enhance our welcome signs and our overall impression of the town as you arrive. Bylaws may need to be developed to protect and enhance our urban forest. Bylaw enforcement may be needed so that there is no unsightly properties in town. The judges were impressed with the Western District Historical Society app, but suggested more signs should be located at strategic points of interest in the downtown, and the app needed to be promoted. Communities in Bloom will examine ways we can work with other community groups in encouraging volunteerism and pride in our community. We will continue to work with Donna McCallum and Craig Nichols to support them in their endeavors. Lastly, I will tell you that I did learn a great deal from attending the Communities in Bloom conference in Strathcona County last September. It was not only the host of the Provincial Awards banquet, but it was mainly the host of the National and International Communities in Bloom conference. I was able to observe presentations by Alberta communities who compete at the national level. I would argue that Strathmore is doing a tremendous amount right. There is one area we should look at doing more of, and that is telling our story. For example, I was guided around Sherwood Park, and I saw commemorative tree beds no larger than the end of this room, which commemorated everything from sporting events to the international conference I was attending. I saw signs on baseball diamonds saying they'd been used in the 55-plus games. I saw benches, trees, and outdoor art with signs indicating they had been donated to honor everything from retirement of community leaders, opening of sports fields, family reunions, and graduations. I would suggest that everything they are doing, we are doing. The difference is they are making sure the community and visitors are aware of it. As I mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, Communities in Bloom will use this evaluation for our planning for the next year. We have decided as a committee not to be evaluated this coming summer in order to allow council, town staff, and us to work on our deficiencies noted in the evaluation. Communities in Bloom will have plenty on our plate without preparing for the judges. We are hosting a spring workshop on March 2nd in the library, where our keynote speaker will be Donna McCallum from the town, providing information on diseases such as black knot and oyster scale, which are rampant throughout the town. We have plans to identify our first heritage tree in Strathmore Lambert Park. We'll be working with Wheatland Elementary and George Freeman Elementary to build garden boxes to further our commitment to urban agriculture. We'll be also planning our birth forest on June 1st, a chance for all of you to volunteer. And we will continue to work on our project in North Lambert Park. Last summer, Communities in Bloom paid for a sign to be installed at the entry of the park to acknowledge its historical significance as the former location of the Strathmore CPR station. We are guided by its historic locations. We make plans with the town staff, the neighborhood, and the library to enhance this area. I am sure that council is aware that Communities in Bloom applied to Waste Management and received a $6,000 grant to be used in that area. As you can tell, Communities in Bloom will be very active this year, despite the fact that we will not be judged. To conclude, we at Communities in Bloom would like to thank council for your support of our organization. We believe your support was recognized by the fact that Strathmore was awarded 5 blooms. I'm not sure where you have the plaque, but I hope that you would display it and you would advertise your accomplishment in your promotion and advertising material. Thank you. And that's it.
Thank you, Mr. Peary, for your presentation and all the work that you and your fellow members of the Communities in Bloom group do.
Most
I've
welcome.
come to appreciate it a great deal, and I've learned a lot from being able to tour some of your things. And I remember even being at one of the tree plantings. But I'm really excited about the part of the birth forest that you've planted with the fruit trees, as far as pollinators for bees and providing fruit for the public to take part in. So comments or questions? I think I have Councillor Corbeil first, and then Councillor Montgomery.
Thank you, Your Worship. A couple questions, actually. What time at the library? Do you, by chance, know for Donna McCallum?
The 10 o'clock
10?
till noon.
Thank you. And I have one other question, then a quick comment. You guys do like a birth forest, right? And not that you don't have enough on your plate, but would you ever consider doing like a memorial one?
Well,
Or
I
have you?
believe that the Lions Club is planning or is in the process of doing that. Am I not right?
That's correct.
Wonderful. That's awesome.
In Lions Park,
Lions Legacy Park.
Lions Legacy Park.
Thank you. That's amazing. I want to thank you guys too. Communities in Bloom, it's a huge asset for Strathmore. It doesn't even just take initiatives for it to look better, but it's for people to actually take pride in where we live and strive to be better. And for that, I really want to thank Communities in Bloom for their initiatives.
I agree.
Thank you, Councillor Corbeil. Councillor Montgomery, and then Deputy Mayor Bauer.
Thank you, Worship. Yeah, I just wanted to echo Mayor Fuel and Councillor Corbeil and say thank you very much to you and the fellow Communities in Bloom members, and just for basically leading the way for our community and making it a nicer place to live. So thank you.
You're most welcome.
Thank you, Councillor Montgomery. Deputy Mayor Bauer.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you, Rob, for being able to come here today and just let us know that we're doing things right, because
You are.
we're not often hearing that message, and it's
Don't wanna have
great to see.
Facebook.
Yeah, and it's great to see an evaluation which allows us to correct some of the
Exactly.
things and have an opportunity to do better in the future. And I have no doubt that we're already on the right path. I think that the suggestions that were included in the evaluation are easy fixes. They're just little tweaks that we need to do. And they're not million-dollar investment types of activities. What I would like to do is I would like to see a partnership with Communities in Bloom with the construction of the new town hall. And I would really like to see us be able to work together and talk about those pollinating plants and perhaps have a little garden that the mayor can host luncheons in, or the CAO perhaps can go out and, yes, definitely.
In
And,
heritage dress, please.
and we can use that building and use our community to be a real showcase, because I think you're right, we do have a lot to be proud of. And I was wondering, just with the graffiti removal kits, have you looked into that at all, as to whether or not those can be purchased easily?
No, I've not,
Okay.
but I
would
think
be.
they can.
Okay, I would be willing to ask operations if we could get on that and be able to sell those to local businesses, because I think that's a really good idea.
Yeah.
And I would be willing to help you out if you want to go forward and have a representative from council.
Sounds good.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Bauer. Councillor Peterson.
Unlike our wonderful positive deputy mayor, I heard the criticism of council and I take it very seriously.
When did you hear that?
And the question I have is related to heritage trees. You said you've recognized your first heritage tree
No,
in.
we're going to be the process. Donna suggested one, and it is in
Yeah.
Lambert Park. And actually, everybody knows about it. As you drive along Park, if you look off, it's a great, big, gigantic,
Right.
very, tree.
Who's the one?
So you're aware that there are many other heritage trees in the community, though?
None which are registered. Which
They are registered.
Are they?
Yes. So we have many, most of which are in Glenwood. And they
Oh.
are registered. They were, I think it was undertaken by George Freeman and Tom Sadler. And Tom Sadler knows where every single one of them are, and they actually have plaques on them. And the town has been hyper vigilant in watering them in the last little while. And so
So are those registered with Heritage Canada?
I believe they are. Tom Sadler would definitely know.
That'd be something we need to do.
And
because-
it really does need your tender loving care, because some of them are old and we should be thinking about contingency and
Yes, and for judging, that's certainly something we need to know about, because that's, if you look on this, that's
Yes.
one of the areas where we were marked down, is that we don't have a policy for it, and we don't have anything that we can point to, so this is
so
sort
Tom
of on-
Sadler knows where every single one is in the community.
So I will
Yeah.
talk to Tom.
And thank you a lot,
Yeah.
very much. And I
Thank-
look forward to the collaboration with Communities in Bloom and the Destination Marketing, Community Tourism and DDRC and the Chamber, and thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Peterson. Councillor Cox.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm the last one, but anyways. And I heard, and I have my calendar open. And when is it that you are looking for us?
Well, I mean, you can always come out to the.
June 1st? No, you
June
mentioned
1st.
a date.
The workshop is on March the 2nd, and that's a community, we're sponsoring with the town, that workshop, and it's on diseases of trees, and Donna will be doing the presentation, and hopefully we'll also have perhaps another thing about alternatives to the types of trees that people are planting from one of the nurseries, but we haven't firmed that up yet. And then the next date is June the 1st, and we're planting the birth forest. And you'll have to register.
I'll have to register Bentley. Councillor Cox, did you have anything else?
No, I'm good.
Just
Thank you
before
very
we send
much.
you away, Mr. Perry, I've put June 1st in my calendar. I'm going to try to
Okay.
bring Bentley. I'm sure he'll like to roll around in the mud. A question for you. Living fences that I read about in the report, is that like shrubbery, like up a fence?
And we're going to try this year, I mean, the plan is that if you know where the birth forest is, and so right now, we're right behind Fortis. So I went and saw Fortis the other day, and what we're planning to do is, we're gonna put grapes on that, along that fence, and so then it will grow up and cover the fence. They're very keen about that, and then it'll be another sample of something that you can grow here in Strathmore, because there are many people that do grow grapes in Strathmore,
I do.
so.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah, and we do too.
Good
So, I
point.
mean, so that's the type of thing they're talking about. That's one of the things we're talking about, yeah.
Okay. Now, as far as the historic component and our heritage sites, will you be sharing this report with the Western?
Yes, already
Okay.
have, yeah.
So I'd love to see some plaques start to spring up around town. And I believe in a year or two, 2020 or 2021, the Legion building is celebrating its centennial. So that's
Yes.
something where the town, CIB, and
That's right.
the Western
Exactly.
could get together on something to possibly add, spruce, fix
That's
up, whatever. It would be a
right.
great project for us to all partner on. And seeing that you do have a Golden Hills School Division person with you, your report led me to some more reading, and I found that on Arbor Day, a lot of places will groups like CIB and the town get together and donate a tree each year to a
Yes.
school where a certain class or a certain division, like Division 1, 2, or 3, may adopt that tree and take care of it. So perhaps we could partner with Golden Hills again, too, for something like that.
I think it's a great idea. Like I said, when I toured around Sherwood Park, I mean, quite frankly, I would argue, and I mean, I looked at all the things from Millet and all these other communities which compete nationally, not provincially anymore, because they've won and they moved on. I mean, I felt that we're really not doing anything less than them. We're doing as much as them. The difference is, I think that they've done a very good job of telling it.
Right.
And I think they, I mean, like I said, we've done the 55-plus games. So
Yeah.
I was toddled out and showed a plaque
Yeah.
on a ball diamond, and I went, oh, well.
And
we've
Doug
done
Griffiths mentioned that at our event a few weeks ago, saying that, there's a lot of negativity that gets spread in towns, and you do need to celebrate
That's
the
right,
positive things, because
exactly.
there's so many groups and people doing things that are making this town and its residents have such a
right.
better life.
And I'm not joking, like literally, there was tree beds that were no bigger than your desk there, with like 4 trees in them, and a plaque which said, Junior B Badminton Championships, February 19, whatever it's like. And then, International Conference Communities in Bloom. And there was like, I want to say 7 trees. And there it was, little plaque, looked very nice. And
So-
it's just telling the story.
If a certain grandfather wanted to have a tree for his grandson,
That's what the
what
birth
would
force
we
is.
specify one tree? Would I
You fill out the form.
fill out the form? I'm just helping educate the public.
That's right, and then we do not actually pick a certain designated tree, because that's always a bit worrisome.
Traumatic if something happens to the tree.
You said it, yes.
Some grandparents do go to the tree and just say, this one's yours.
That's
Ah,
right,
that's a good
and
idea.
dig a hole and plant it and take a picture, et cetera, and then come back next year and hope that tree
Sounds
is still
good.
alive.
Good. Well, thank you very much for all your efforts and the efforts of your group and the community that you've done so much for. It's really helping to transform the town. I wanted to thank Craig Nichols and Donna as well again. You guys did a great job stepping up with all that pressure and time crunch as we moved into the judging, and you never failed to just jump in and do whatever we felt needed to happen. Quick question for you too. Are we moving towards that steam process as far as weeds in town?
Yes, we made the acquisition of the machine.
Perfect.
In about 4 days.
And is that something that can be farmed out or used with commercial buildings too, or is that something that we just do on our own property as public property?
Well, we'll have to see how much utilization we get out of it.
Okay, perfect. I'm glad we're moving that way too. That's a really environmentally safe way to go.
And that's, I'll just say, if there is a time where we want to go through step by step, more than willing to talk to you about it.
Perfect. Thank you
Thank
again.
very much.
That brings us to item 4.2, the Growing Families Society. If we have some people who would be willing to step up to the microphone, and if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself for the public and for the people at home. And if you wouldn't mind doing it in musical theater style tonight.
We brought pictures.
Nice.
So I am Margot Sevick, and I'm with the Growing Family Society. I brought with me Cindy Vandiga and May Rostecki-Budsey, our executive manager. So, Mr. Mayor, honorable councilors, tonight I am here to report on the programs and activities of the Growing Family Society made possible with the funds provided by the town and other funding partners.
Here. Oh.
Our mission is to promote, support, and advocate for healthy lifestyles within our communities to enhance the unity of the family structure so all families can reach their full potential. We have 3 main programs: Growing Opportunities, Bridging the Gap, and 5 for Life. Growing Opportunities is an in-home visitation program to provide support to at-risk pregnant women. We employ a nurse, a support worker, and a life skills coach. Women under the age of 19 are automatically accepted into the program. Over that age, if they have 2 of our 13 risk factors, then they are accepted into the program. We just celebrated 23 years of service in Strathmore and Wheatland County area, serving a total of 350 moms. The funds we received from you for 2018 was directed towards our life skills portion of the Growing Opportunities program. We helped 18 clients over a 12-month period based on a 1-day-a-week program. We build trust, we educate, support, and teach coping strategies for these new moms. Your money was invested to give Strathmore's newest residents the best start possible. Bridging the Gap, or known as BTG, engages adults 55 years and older to volunteer their life skills, knowledge, and experience back into the community, with program development that supports social participation and inclusion for seniors. Your funds here helped enable 19 community lunch club sessions, 15 meet and greet parent and taught sessions, a downsizing and decluttering session during Seniors Week. We hosted 5 Bridging the Gap health interagency meetings. We hosted a Kickin' It Old School intergenerational event with 5 for Life, 7 sessions of Name That Tune. Bridging the Gap, our website, which manages volunteer opportunities, resources, and has a calendar of events. And if you've not checked the calendar of events, we have a volunteer that is amazing, and if there is something happening in Strathmore, it's on that calendar. So go to bridgingthegapalberta.ca and you'll know what's happening. Bridging the Gap is an active partner in Senior Power, Seniors Week, Volunteer Recognition, the Seniors Resource Handbook, Caregiver Support Committee, and the Women's Conference. We tracked a total of 911 volunteer hours in just Bridging the Gap. And my guess is that's actually not the actual volunteer hours, because volunteers are typically happy and engaged in their work, and they don't keep track of the time very well. So that is a huge asset to the town of Strathmore, and your funds to Bridging the Gap help to coordinate and springboard those volunteers into action. 5 for Life is our early childhood, so that focuses on children ages 0 to 5 years. And it continues to provide and develop programs to support early childhood development in Strathmore and Wheatland County. The most recent early development instrument results for our area, released in 2018, indicate that many children who are entering kindergarten are struggling. Based on our results, there is a need to improve upon social competence and emotional maturity in children under the age of 6, as 26% of the children in our area have difficulty or great difficulty in these developmental areas. We also need to improve communication skills and general knowledge skills, as 31% of our children are having difficulties. These children have difficulty in communicating their needs and wants in a socially appropriate way, telling stories, and lack of general knowledge about the outside world. So your funds were used to help the youngest residents of Strathmore through programs like our 4 and 5-year-old fair in the spring and our terrific 2 and 3-year-old event in the fall. Box City in June at the Newsy Neighbor Festival. We researched and designed the very first early childhood resource handbook. We hire and supervise a summer student. We hosted 2 workshops, the Core Brain Story and Beyond the 5 Senses. We partnered with a postpartum support group to host a community approach to healthy children workshop, Sports Saturday, the community book sale in January, Books for Babes at Brentwood School, There were 2 free family swim sessions, 4 free gymnastics sessions, partnered to bring 8 sessions of Mother Goose in the park, National Child's Day event, Family Day Unplugged, a 2-hour free family swim was offered, promoting 5 for Life at different various events, and the 5 for Life total volunteer hours was 632.5 hours. So the total highlights for all of Growing Family Society, our total volunteer hours for all our programs comes to just over 2,300 hours. Or that is the equivalent of having a staff member work 44.3 hours a week. So Growing Family Society in November, we had a celebration tea and we celebrated being in our community for 22 years helping families. And we would like to invite all of you to come to our 4th annual Family Carnival and Fundraiser on April 12th at the Civic Center. We are facing some challenges going forward into 2019. In December, we were informed that our software for our Bridging the Gap website is out of date and after 7 years needs to be upgraded. That comes to us at a cost of just under $5,400. The postpartum support group, we try to run 3 8-week sessions, and the struggle is always that funding dollars come a little bit late for us because we would like to run a program in January, February, and another one in March and April. And each of those programs, or each 8-week program, costs $1,600 to run. And our memorandum of agreement, our 3-year funding program with the town, will be due in 2020, and we would very much like to work out another 3-year agreement term with you when that comes to an end. It has been positive. Maybe it's a positive night for you guys, but this has been a really positive thing for us. Other organizations, we still write grants, and it's very time consuming and takes a lot of time. So our 3-year agreement, it helps, and it helps ensure that our programs will continue into the future and help our residents of Strathmore.
Thank you very much for your presentation, and if there's some questions, Councillor Cox?
Oh, sorry.
Councillor Montgomery?
Thank you, Worship. I just wanted to say thank you to you and the other people at your organization. And I just had a question with regards to, can you maybe expand on why there'd be a large amount of kids who are lacking in social competence and emotional maturity going into kindergarten?
It's parental education, educating the parents how we should be engaging our kids. It's reading to our kids, and so that's the 5 for Life programs. It's getting the kids to come to these events. It's fun for the kids, but while they're at the event, there's a lot of parental education going on. It's simple things like parents aren't giving their kids scissors to pick up and try to practice using scissors. It's just learning to engage with their kids.
Okay.
It's that simple.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Councillor Peterson and Councillor Corbeil.
It's humbling to see what you've accomplished with so little. Because, we recognize that what we offered was limited, and it is incredibly humbling to see what you've accomplished. And I work in an environment where I see firsthand the results of the good work that you do. One of the studies that I was recently, that was featured on CTV, and I followed it up, and it spoke about the predominance, what you're speaking to, the 30% of children entering school with severe or greater dual diagnosis, and the increased incidence up to in Division 1, so from K to 3 in schools of children suffering from acute anxiety, withdrawal, and depression in very, very young children. And the study was a longitudinal study that was equating those things to the current fentanyl crisis that we find ourselves in, and also to internet and media addiction. And so I think more than ever, the kind of intervention, the early intervention work that you're doing is more critical than it's ever been. And I just really want to acknowledge that it's also incredibly difficult when you fix problems at the front end to then measure the money you save. We all know it, but it's something that's very hard without a creative actuary to prove that. But like I said, there are a few people that are privileged to see the results.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Peterson. Councillor Corbeil.
Thank you, Your Worship. And thank you, Margot, for the whole presentation and everything that you guys do in our community. Once again, it's another community organization that, it makes Strathmore a better place. I have a question on, because you guys, the Five for Life or whatever, you used to meet once a week, was it not? With the kids under 5? Or maybe it was Parent Link.
There is Parent Link in
Maybe
town.
it was.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's different program. Five for Life has had quite a life in Strathmore.
Yeah.
So
I didn't realize how long.
Yeah.
That's incredible, like 22
well,
years.
Five for Life hasn't been 20. Growing Opportunities
Yeah.
has had 22 years, but Five for Life still has been 6
6
years.
years. Just keeps, everything kind of just keeps branching and growing. Is there anything that we can do to promote or help what you're doing?
More money.
Yeah, for sure.
Utilizing our grant writer.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, I just wanted to say thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Corbeil. I don't think we have anything else. I wanted to extend my appreciation for your group and all the efforts that your people do and bring so many programs to our different ages of groups. I had one question about your family carnival. I'm already trying to put it into my calendar. Can you give us the times again for that family carnival and fundraiser?
Yep. It's from 5 till 8.
Okay.
It's a pancake supper by the Cheeto Lions.
Okay.
$25 gets the whole family into the event.
Okay.
And there's spin to win, online raffle. April 12th.
Perfect. And just a quick question about your software problems. Do you have the funds in place that can help you get that
We do
taken
not.
care of? You do not?
No.
Okay. Is that something where you might be making a supplementary request to us, or do you think that would come forward, or is this fundraising going to go towards that software? Like, I know that that's pretty important to your group as far as functioning, to be able to have current and up-to-date software. So will some of your fundraiser on the 12th go to that?
Well, if you're going to step up and give us the money, that would solve the problem. What the money for the fundraiser goes to is really, it's about maintaining that life skills coach for the young moms. We just, when we sit around the table and it comes to these families that are at risk, it's one-on-one that works for them. Other communities can help, can interact with more families, but the actual helping is about being one-on-one, and it's those life skills. And that life skills coach is expensive. So, or it comes with a price tag of about $2,200 for the year to employ 1 day a week. So that's what our fundraiser goes to help raise funds for.
Okay.
So we're stretching those things. So yeah, if it's a separate application we need to make for the website, we are talking with the town a bit about
Okay.
website, but I know the town is needing
Tracy, if I
software
could
updating
shoot
as
a
well.
question to you out there in the audience. We have that community fund that can be applied to, but would this group count for that if they might have already been helped, or?
Yeah, so unfortunately, they can't apply for more FCSS dollars.
Okay.
FCSS dollars doesn't qualify for software or infrastructure investments, but software would be included in. The limitations of the CIF program is it is very event and program
Right.
specific. So it would have to come to council as a completely separate ask outside those two programs.
Okay, thank you. Well, once again, thank you for everything your group does and that you provide. I know, having taught for quite a while, and a lot of us have that background, there are a lot of families that are struggling in this town, and I think you provide a really good service for them to get help, to get support, to expose their young children to things. It's really important in our community, so I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thanks.
Any other comments, councillors? Thank you again for your presentation.
Your Worship?
Councillor
I
Peterson.
just want to say that in terms of financial well-being and contribution in the years that I was principal of the outreach school here, when they had their celebration, I was calculating how many young parents had experienced positive intervention that where things may have turned out differently. So with growing opportunities and growing families, teaching young moms how to nurse, providing that support, being able to be there to assist them with life skills and all manner of transition and bridging programming, we actually did do an actuarial process back in the early 2000s, and was presented to the provincial government, and it talked about the cost to community when the interventions don't happen. So what happens when someone doesn't finish school? What does that cost society? What happens when someone graduates from high school and has employability skills? What happens when they are able to achieve a 2-year diploma? And how does that roll out over 35 years in terms of the tax base? And what happens when they have a university degree? So one of the key factors that I think is really important is that 68% of those young women that had intervention from growing families went on to have post-secondary accomplishments where they completed post-secondary and, now for many years are, paying a great amount of taxes in it. That small investment at the front end has paid off to society countless times over. In fact, someone with a university degree will pay that $1,800 average investment, was what we figured it out to be over an 18-month period, I think. Will pay that back 35 times in the minimum. And so I just can't highlight that enough, that it is an economic investment that makes sense.
Thank you very much, Councillor Peterson. That makes a great deal of sense. Deputy Mayor Bauer?
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm just wanting to piggyback a little bit on what Pat said. Margot, if I could ask you a question. What is, could you give me more information about the software part? Because I'm spinning a bunch of ideas in my head right now, and I just need to know some logistics. Is it a program that you need in order to install on your website, or is it to update your current platform?
It's to be updated.
Okay. And that's how you get all the information out to people on your website? Does it help you with tracking the statistics and that type of thing as well?
Like the analytic?
Yeah, like what will the software be used for?
Well, the software, one of the main focuses is that people can place their wants for volunteer work, or if someone has volunteer opportunities, they can place them on the website, and it gives those looking for increasing their volunteer base an avenue to connect with them. And that's that's the background piece that's missing right now on our website.
The reason I asked is just because it's so difficult for those types of infrastructure type of needs to access grant money. And so I'm trying to think of other ways that we would be able to help you meet your needs. But thank you for that. I'll keep thinking about it. And if I think of something, I'll contact you. Thanks.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Bauer. I think we're finished that item. And again, thank you for all your work in presenting tonight. That brings us to item 5, confirmation of minutes. 5.1, confirmation of regular council meeting minutes for January 23rd, 2019. Councillor Montgomery.
So I just wanted to point out that there was just a couple of irregularities with regards to the time stamps. So if you look at the adjournment versus out of camera times, the adjournment comes before the out of camera time.
At the very end. Councillor Montgomery, are you saying at the very end of the meeting?
Yeah.
Okay.
Came out at 9:13 and adjourned at 9:05.
Okay. Jennifer?
Thank you, Your Worship. We'll have to review the video and we'll go back and make sure that those times are correct. Council can just postpone adopting the minutes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Councillor Montgomery, good catch. And that brings us to item 6, so that'll be coming up the next meeting then. Thank you very much, Jen. Moving on to 6, I don't think we have any tabled items, which brings us to item 7, items for administration. 7.1, the appointment of the town weed I knew I was not going to get that out without a snicker. The appointment of the town weed inspector, which I think is different from what some people might be doing at home while they're watching this.
Yeah. Good evening, Your Worship, Council. One of the things that we ran into last year basically had to do with noxious weeds, and yeah, I know. This is going to be a tough one to get through, this one. Anyways, bottom line is, in discussion with Donna, one of the things is, under the Weed Control Act of the province of Alberta, the municipality has the authority to appoint people as technically the municipal weed inspectors. It actually gives us the power to basically give notice to public property owners and have them remove noxious weeds from their property. Last year, we had 2 property owners who were basically helped us out, but we ended up having to remove the weeds because we had no enforcement abilities. For us to involve the province means the province will send us the bill for weed inspectors. So we have 2 qualified staff members. One of us, obviously, is Donna McClellan, and the other one is Jolene Post, who's currently on leave and is expected to return April 1. So by appointing both of them, they're both horticulturalists, and they basically both know the process involved in the disposal and everything else of it. So they'd be able to basically go on to lands, and basically if there's a question about a certain weed, they can find out and then just give a notice to the property owner to have it removed, with obviously guidance of how to dispose of it properly. So what I'm looking for is for council to appoint these 2 individuals. This way we can actually get them proper credentials, and then they have the power to carry out what's in the act of the province of Alberta.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that, Craig. Councillor Montgomery, then Councillor Cox.
If Councillor Cox would like to go first, that'd be fine. I have to find something.
Okay, Councillor Cox.
Your Worship, I was
Oh, you're
prepared to
prepared to
move.
make a motion.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I just have a question about section 26 that has to do with highways. And I was just wondering if, so it just has to do with obligating the owner of a property that borders the highway, possibly they'd have to take responsibility for halfway out into the highway. I was just wondering if there's any properties in Strathmore that would that we would be expecting property owners to, let's say, take care of weeds on roadways or boulevards or anything like that?
It's an interesting point. I haven't actually looked at that section of the act. Obviously, if there's a question as to whether or not who's the actual property owners. The town, as we did last year, will just take responsibility and work with Alberta Transport and get rid of it.
Okay.
So,
Okay, that was the only question.
Thank you, Councillor Montgomery. Councillor Cox.
Thank you, Your Worship. I would like to move that council rescind all past appointment for weed inspectors and appoint Donna McCallum and Jolene Post as the town of Strathmore's weed inspectors.
Thank you very much, Councillor Cox. Councillor Peterson, did you want to speak to that motion?
I just have a question, not to the motion itself, but to the carrying out of the duty. So are part of the duties relevant to canals and ditches that run through the community? Would that be, I know that that's WID, but would we have a role to play in that?
it would basically fall within anything within the boundaries of the town.
And so I know that Chestermere is really, really concerned about some noxious flower that's growing in the canals and moving this way, or you're aware of that?
No, I'm not aware of it.
Yeah, I forget what it's called. It's not loose strife, it's something else.
Yeah.
But
If
they-
it's within WID land, I mean, we would work with
I
them.
think so.
Yes.
I think so, yes. Yeah, and it's coming, it's very close if it's there, but yeah, okay. I
Okay,
just,
I'll let
I didn't know if they were,
Thank you, Councillor Peterson. I think we have a motion on the floor. All in favor? And the motion is carried. Thank you, Craig.
Councillor.
Which brings us to item 7.2, United Way. And Linda, are you speaking to this? And welcome to the council meeting for tonight.
Good evening, Your Worship and Council. I'm here tonight with Scott Mulick. Scott is the board chair for United Way Strathmore Partnership. So we're here this evening to discuss the United Way Regional Change recommendations. And these recommendations align with the United Way Calgary Partnership expectations, council strategic priorities, best practices, and a trauma-informed care approach when working with people in human services.
So during the United Way Strathmore Partnership January 15th meeting, there was a great discussion on who uses our services and why we're only servicing people in the town of Strathmore. The board felt in order to meet the goals of the United Way, which are to improve lives, strive to end poverty, help kids succeed, build extraordinary communities, that we need to enhance our service delivery area to include Wheatland County. This would provide opportunities for service providers to have an impact on many more people, thus have a direct effect on the town. In addition, opening up our membership would allow for more diverse representation, increase community partnerships, and enhance intermunicipal collaborations. Fundraising and awareness campaigns would broaden our scope of support.
And so in support of the United Way Strathmore Partnership, we are recommending adoption to enhance the service area, change the name, and include membership from county residents.
Thank you for that presentation. Councillor Montgomery, did you have a question?
I do. So first of all, like, are we planning, or I guess, are you guys planning on approaching Wheatland County Council about any of this?
So what we would like to do, once the recommendation goes through, is to share the information that we're broadening and enhancing the service delivery. So we would reach out to them to inform them of that, and also with the Wheatland County FCSS board as well.
Okay. And I guess, pardon me if this was made clear in the report, but will this affect, or how will this affect the amount of outside funding, if any, that the United Way Strathmore gets?
So right now, nothing can change until after 2020, because we have our MOU with United Way till 2020. And we're not exactly sure how that's going to impact directly from the funds that we get from United Way. However, any funds raised in Strathmore, we get to keep 100% of those. So we would have an opportunity to be able to increase our fundraising throughout the county instead of just staying in Strathmore, to be able to access that, and all of that money raised, we get to keep in our own community.
Okay. Yeah, I picked up that part. I just wasn't sure about the outside. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Montgomery. Deputy Mayor Bauer? Oh, I was gonna just follow that as far as any worries that you would have as far as funding towards the expansion of the services to the county, but you already said that you'll be able to fundraise on a broader scale, so that's fine, that's good for me. Councillor Corbeil?
Thank you, Your Worship. I like the direction it's going. I like the fact that we can probably get volunteers from the county. I like that we're broadening the horizons. Really, it's a great collaboration. I was just going to make I was going to do one of the motions. Ready? I would move that the United Way Strathmore expand the service delivery area to include the county of Wheatland. Do I finish, or is it just separate? I can do it all together?
You can do either or, but you could do it all together.
Okay, and that the United Way Strathmore name be changed to the United Way Strathmore and area, and that the Wheatland County residents be given the opportunity to apply to become United Way Strathmore and area board members as per the Town of Strathmore application process, and will be appointed by Strathmore Town Council.
Thank you, Councillor Corbeil. You've all heard the motion. Is there any discussion or questions on the motion? Councillor Cox?
Just a discussion, thank you, Your Worship. I just wanted to say that I support your move 100%. I think that it gives us another avenue in which to be transparent that we are working with our partners in the county.
Thank you, Councillor Cox, and very good collaboration with the two groups too. We appreciate that. That's good. Deputy Mayor Bauer?
Thank you, Worship. I just have perhaps an amendment to the motion. Rather than be appointed by Strathmore Town Council, because we have the nomination committee, would that fall under our responsibilities of the nomination committee?
Your Worship, so this committee is not technically a council committee. We hold a contract with the United Way of Calgary, and that contract tells us what we need to do. So when there are members coming forward, it would not go through the nominations.
Thank you for that clarification.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Bauer, and thank you, Jen. So we have that motion on the floor. Seeing no further discussion, all in favor? And the motion is carried. Thank you very much for your presentation. Very nice to have you here tonight. Thank you, Scott, and thank you, Linda. Which brings us to item 7.3. We've all been waiting excitedly for this. The CSMI, and Mike, you are presenting tonight again. Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you, Your Worship and Council. This is just forward to authorize Council to approve this amending agreement that extends our master CSMI agreement. Hopefully, we've gone through any questions you might have, but I'm certainly open to any further questions you might have before dealing with any motion on this.
Thank you, Mike, for your quick presentation. For those of you in the audience or at home, we had some of this discussion come up in camera to help prepare us for some of this further discussion and a potential motion tonight. So we have been made aware of all the various issues, and this motion is that might be coming forward, that will be coming forward, is almost not a housekeeping, but it would help provide more time to further pursue this. So Deputy Mayor Bauer?
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm slowly becoming a water nerd, just so you know. So with that, I'll recommend that Council, I recommend the motion that Council authorize the Mayor and CAO to execute the Master Agreement amending agreement to extend the agreement approval date to February 28th, 2020.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Bauer. Comments? Councillor Cox, or Councillor Peterson, then Councillor Cox, sorry.
I just think that in the interest of transparency, it's good for the public to know that there is a cost to this, and there always has been a cost, and so we are in this agreement with our partners for another term until February 28th, 2020. And I don't know if we could just maybe have you talk about the costs as they are now and have been.
Yes, certainly, Your Worship. The cost will be to operate a stormwater system that will take stormwater from our developments, the new developments that we anticipate happening in the northwest portion of town over the next 25 years. The idea is to provide a mechanism by which we will pay funds into CSMI, which is the Cooperative Stormwater Management Initiative, which we share with the other municipalities that are in the area. Those costs will consist of costs for capital works that the WID would undertake on their works to upgrade their systems to take municipal stormwater. There will be some operating costs that will follow along with that, and then there will also be some administration costs as the program goes forward.
And so supplemental to that, if I might, if I can just be, that we would pay 2.5% of the capital program costs or operational costs and 20% of the governance costs in terms of the collaboration.
In terms of our capital costs, there will likely be probably slightly less than the 2.5%, but we will have 2.5% of the actual development area that will be entitled to develop. So based on that, we'll be paying 2.5% of the operating costs and some of the other funds that will be developed through this.
Thank you.
Thank you for that, Councillor Peterson. It's always good to make sure we're transparent with the public. Much appreciated. Councillor Cox.
Thank you, Your Worship. And I'm just going to take it to a little simpler form, I think. What we're doing today is not signing the actual CMSI agreement, but we are lengthening the negotiation time before we actually sign.
That's precisely correct.
Thank you.
Thank you for that, Councillor Cox. So I believe we have a motion on the floor, and you've all heard the motion. No further discussion. All in favor? And the motion is carried. Thank you, Mike, for your presentation and comments.
Thank you, Your Worship and Council.
Item 8, committee reports. If those in the audience haven't got an agenda package, we have some available, and some of the some of the committee meeting minutes are in there. So at this time, we're on 8.1 council committee meeting minutes. You have them in front of you. Councillor Peterson.
So move acceptance of the reports as they appear in the February 6th agenda.
Thank you. You've heard the motion on the floor to accept the meeting minutes. All in favor? And that motion is carried. Which brings us to item 8.2, reports from councillors from committees on which they sit, which is found on page 55. Oh, sorry, Councillor Cox.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just wanted to report on the Seniors Advisory Committee. We had our meeting on Monday, and I just wanted to give them a shout out. In November, the Seniors Advisory, just to make it clear, holds a seniors coffee on the third Wednesday of every month. We pick a topic, and they get guest speakers, and they hold coffees. Now, November's of 2018 had only 5 people attend, and therefore December's was canceled. So we kind of regrouped. They did an excellent job, and our Monday, January coffee had 45 plus people. And the topic was seniors housing. We are doing another seniors housing part 2 on February 20th at 10 a.m. If anyone's interested in attending. Wanted to make sure that I do better at advertising this from them. Sorry, it will be held at the library committee room. And also just it's a new board, so they're having fun. And Mayor Fuel, I had something I was supposed to tell you. I can't remember who it was. Didn't I have one in here? Oh, I can't remember. Anyways, the mics are apparently working better, and people can be heard.
Okay. Did you have a location for that seniors coffee?
In the library boardroom.
Perfect, thank you.
And, yeah, moving along great. Very exciting. New year.
Thank you very much for that, Councillor Cox. Councillor Peterson.
Your Worship, I have a question to administration. I know that you were supposed to be receiving minutes from the Wheatland Housing Authority, but it appears that may not be happening. Ratified minutes, because I haven't seen them in the last 3 meetings.
Your Worship, I do not recall seeing them. However, I'd have to check with our records department.
Thank you. And so Councillor Cox and I sit on the Wheatland Housing Management Body, and I think there are a couple things that are worth noting to our public. The first is that Mr. Legore, who has had a wonderful run with the town, is also working to advise Wheatland Housing in the processes towards getting a new lodge. And so we have much work to do. And nothing has been decided. We are just gathering our forces to see that we take under advisement what our seniors in this community need. The second thing is that there was an increase in the mill rate for the seniors lodge. The town pays about 20% of the overall cost. The county carries the other 80%. And that amount of money is about 23% of the total cost of running the lodge. And so that increase, I know, was sent to our Director of Finance. It's interesting that cost is related to the carbon tax primarily. And the thing that's very interested in that is that there is a mandate from government that people who reside in the lodges can receive rebates if they qualify, but those rebates cannot be applied. So it's an interesting conundrum. And I think it's something that should be dealt with probably on the AUMA floor in the future, if it continues. And so that is the lodge and all of the seniors' residences run by Wheatland Housing are full and fully operational. You're going to report on SOS?
No, I wasn't going to.
So I'll just mention that the Strathmore Overnight Shelter has authorized the hiring of a part-time employee. They are quite busy, and they're getting tremendous input from the RCMP. The RCMP have been utilizing the work that the volunteers at that shelter are doing. And they have some, they're not running the coldest night of the year anymore. We're too small to do that. And so coldest night of the year punted us effectively. But we're okay with that because we had to pay them money to support us. So we're going to do our own. And then we'll be able to realize all the benefits of that. And so we'll be asking the town to be able to advertise on their site, and they are going forward. Thank you.
Thank you for that, and I'm sure you'll be volunteering me to walk on the coldest night of the year as you annually do. So I'm looking for a motion are there any other reports from councillors? Sorry, thank you, Deputy Mayor Bauer.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just further to what Councillor Peterson said, the Street-a-thon will be on Saturday, March 9th, if you'd like to mark your calendars. And we're looking, Carolyn Fisk is the representative that is heading that committee. And I'll be bringing more information as I receive it. What I wanted to do was just report further to Councillor Peterson's addition of the on urgent business at the last council meeting, January 28th, as we now know, the Strathmore Municipal Library released a letter to the public explaining a budget shortfall and the need to reduce hours in programming in addition to increasing exam invigilation fees. And we, our council has talked extensively about that letter, and we have invited Jeff Ball, the president of the library board, to come today and speak in response to that letter. He was unavailable to be here today, but I have been assured that he will be here next week at the Committee of the Whole, and he will be added onto the agenda, and we'll be able to ask him questions. There's been quite an outpouring of support on social media for the library, and a small grassroots group of people have decided that they would like to hold their own fundraiser with the library. So with Carmen Arison, they have decided to get donations, solicit donations from businesses all over Wheatland County and in Strathmore. And they'll be accepting donations until Friday, February 22nd. They can be dropped off at the library, or if you need to pick them up, please contact Natalie at chfurniture0713@gmail.com. And donations are being recognized on the website as they are being received. And the community auction will be Monday, March 4th to Monday, March 15th. And the proceeds from this auction will go towards the infrastructure costs and the cost to paying the employees that currently work on the library, because they are experiencing a budget shortfall due to operations. And that's all I'd like to report. Thank you very much, Mayor Fuel.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Bauer. So at this point, Councillor Corbeil.
I move the council accept the reports for information.
Thank you very much, Councillor Corbeil. You've all heard the motion. All in favor? And the motion is carried to accept those committee reports. There is nothing in item 9, I don't think. No items directly related to council. Item 10, bylaws. 10.1 bylaw number 18-25, land use bylaw amendment bylaw, which is found on page 56. Mr. Fisher, welcome to tonight's meeting.
Thank you, Your Worship. Council may recall that this was discussed on December 5th, and there were some issues that came up, and I've tried to briefly address those as to why this was done the way it was. And given that situation, there are some, if this is an urgent matter, and there's certainly some staffing constraints, setting up some sort of a permitting system and amending both bylaws certainly is an option, but we feel that given our initial, I think, our perception of our direction from council, we try to get this out to you as quickly as possible, and that's what we did, and this is kind of where we landed, and if this is not acceptable, then please give us some direction.
Thank you, Mr. Fisher. Councillor Cox.
I'm prepared to make a motion, Your Worship,
Thank you, Councillor Cox.
that council gives second reading to land use bylaw amendment bylaw number 18-25.
Thank you, Councillor Cox. And now that we have second reading, we can have discussion on that, I believe. So, Councillor Corbeil, did you want to say anything?
Yes, please.
Okay, thank you.
Actually, I do, thank you. Hi, Warner. I have a couple quick questions.
Sure.
When I was reading through it, all right, it's this part. You will allow a maximum of one recreation vehicle or an RV to be parked on a front driveway or parking pad in the front yard of a residential lot containing fewer than 30 dwelling units. Are you talking like side street? Is that what you're meaning there? Or what? Well, I'm not
What
sure.
I'm saying
Oh,
is,
I see. Never mind.
If it's an
Complex.
apartment building.
Yep.
There's a,
Yep.
there's a drop-off.
Yep.
Assisted living facilities are
Right.
commonly that
Oh,
way.
yeah, for sure. I'll come back. Just give me 2 seconds. My thoughts.
Thank you, Councillor Cox. Councillor Montgomery.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just sort of, well, and thank you, Werner. I know you worked really hard on this, and I know it's definitely not a fun project for you. I just wanted clarification on, I guess, what a boulevard is with respect to an RV projecting over one. Because, like, we're saying that. Go ahead, anyways.
Thank you for that question. So, think of any subdivision that was created after 1950. Hillview, carriageway, like the pavement, you have a curb, you have a sidewalk, right? Your property line is not at the back of sidewalk. Your property line is typically about a meter from the back of sidewalk, sometimes a lot more, sometimes a lot less depending on the roadway. So in new subdivisions, your driveway, well, so that's new subdivision, so typically from back of sidewalk, and if you have a 6-meter setback to your garage, you've essentially got 7 meters to park. But that driveway is partially on the boulevard. So follow me? Old subdivisions, if I look at someplace like Waddy Lane where there's a separate boulevard, so you have a square face curb, you have a boulevard, now you have a sidewalk. Typically in those cases, that property line is at or near the back of sidewalk. So the minute that we say, gee, you can't project over a boulevard, well, every house in every new subdivision probably does. Every vehicle in every driveway in every new subdivision does. Where we have to be careful, and this is particularly relevant in the new land use bylaw, is that we sometimes forget that in the old subdivisions, that property line is only 6 meters from the garage, whereas in a new subdivision, it's 7.5, sometimes even a lot more. So that's why I'm saying, as long as it's, as long as the vehicle the driveway is roughly perpendicular to the road and the vehicle's gonna overhang, what I don't wanna see is, consider this being a corner lot. Road here, the garage is here, now the RV's parked here. And in that case, if it's parked parallel to the direction of travel on the road, it's gonna encroach onto the sidewalk. The steps are gonna hang over the sidewalk, which is gonna be annoying at night in the shin. And if you want to park it there, park it behind a fence so that you know where the property line is. That's kind of the long and short of it.
Okay, all right, well, thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Montgomery. Deputy Mayor Bauer?
Thank you. Werner, how many calls do the bylaw officers field with regard to this matter?
I think probably more than they would like to. I don't want to be glib about it, but certainly their concern is that the way I don't want to get into enforcement. We have a bylaw officer that I would just assume feel those kind of questions. The issue with I think RV parking is it's been fairly common practice over the last, Councillor Peterson can correct me on this, I would say about the last 20 years, to take the attitude that we deal with it on a complaint basis. Well, the instant that somebody complains about it, and I've done this when the bylaw officers are away. I mean, the minute you get to somebody's property, they go, what about, and what about? And I think that anybody driving around the community, especially now that we've had a few detours, you see RVs parked all over the place in the front yard, even in relatively upscale subdivisions. So I have no good answer.
I think a bylaw should be structured so that it empowers the bylaw officers to do their job. If the bylaw is not supporting what the officers are doing on the streets, then we should be looking at the bylaw differently. And so are the issues that the bylaw officers currently dealing with not in the bylaw, and that's why we're changing it?
No, this came about because it's been controversial, right? I think when I presented something about a year ago on land use bylaw, I said, it's going to be one of these hot potatoes, because there's there's some very strong opinions on both sides of it, and then there's a huge bell curve somewhere in the middle. People who say, well, I'm living in a small town because I want to live in a small town. If I want to live in Calgary rules, I'll live in Calgary, and there's that. Other people are saying, well, I live in an upscale subdivision. I don't want to look at the RV across the road from me. So it's
So do you think this bylaw will address that?
Well, I guess the question is, I think the important thing is we need to get driveways under control. We need a development permit process for that. As far as, there's always going to be people that are unhappy about somebody parking an RV in their front yard. And we can't deal with it on a neighborhood by neighborhood basis, because if I go into the most exclusive subdivisions, I might find a $500,000 motorhome sitting there or more. Mm-hmm. Whereas if I go into a more, where I live, they're probably in the $30,000 to $40,000 range. So I don't think this is anything that you're ever going to be, that we're going to resolve to anybody's satisfaction. I think the best we can get is some sort of a bell curve where there's going to be people outside some distribution that aren't going to be happy. Is it reasonable to allow a person to park one RV on their property? I'll leave that to council.
Mm-hmm. And that's what I'm wrestling with right now, because we have a number of people that are storing their trailers and RVs on lots. And I'm wondering if this bylaw is going to invite them to put a parking pad next to their house if they have room and park the RV there instead to save some money.
I think the real important thing there is, and I've covered it here, and this is why I think the driveway thing is most important. And it also comes up in connection with the next item, which is the sanitary sewers thing. The overwhelming majority of our lots are either split drainage, back to front. Something has to drain to the street. Front to back drainage is very rare, except on walkouts. And even on those, you typically have the garage pad sitting higher than the street so things drain. If people extend their driveway all the way to the property line, they usually create a dam, and then in a severe storm event, depending on how if their downspouts are running properly, it's all dumping onto the neighbor's property, and then we get really loud complaints, especially if the neighbor's basement floods. One of the real challenges that we've had as a planning department over the last 2 or 3 years is to get people to follow the lot grades that were approved. And so I think one of the ways that we do that is if people extend their driveways all the way to the property line, they're creating a dam. And so I think the other thing we're trying to say here is that as a guideline, 45% of your lot should be driveway, not more than 45%, and not more than 8 meters. Now, I know we're gonna have challenges around that, because some of our lots are getting very narrow, and we haven't pushed that very hard, but I think there's the risk of doing that. I think there's a far greater risk that if we don't pay attention to landscaping, and we go with xeriscaping. I mean, I know one street in one community where there's about four or five fourplexes side by side. And when the gas sector was going gung-ho, you might see 8 or 10 pickup trucks parked axle to axle with bumper stickers you probably don't like and stuff hanging off the back of them that you like even less. But it was kind of a cool thing to do, and quite frankly, I thought it was quite unappealing.
And my final question is just, what is the current fine for not adhering to the bylaw?
There is no fine in the bylaw per
So
se.
will we be implementing something like
I
that
think
subsequent to this?
So the issue doing this in the land use bylaw is that the enforcement is typically, like bylaw can go out there and issue a violation, and I don't know exactly what that violation is, but typically if it comes through the land use bylaw, we write people a letter politely, then we give them an order, and they can appeal that order. So that's why there is some benefit putting some of this into community standards bylaw. But then it gets a little complicated because we have to sit down with more people and sort it all out.
Thank you, Werner.
And so we are looking at writing a new land use bylaw to sort some of this stuff out.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Bauer. Councillor Corbeil, then Councillor Peterson.
Thank you, Your Worship. How much more work would making, like requiring permits and stuff like that, how much more work would that be? Like, would it be? Because someone's going to have to go and measure. And
We are gonna, I think it's not unreasonable to assume that we're gonna end up there.
And charge for it.
But then there's that question, yeah, like, a small town, do you wanna charge people for charge them a permit fee, or do you want voluntary? I don't know if council's aware of this, but I've officially got a few more months. And I've got about 300 pages of land use bylaw to write, and I want to get it done. And this, for me, is a black hole. I'll give you an example. In a previous, if I may share this with council, if it's not inappropriate, in a previous job, I was asked to do an RV survey. 6 weeks was given as the amount of time that was devoted to it. I had 1,100 responses online. I kicked most of them out because after the second response, it was only taking people 3 to 4 seconds to hit the send button. I knew they were duplicates. So typically, each IP address got 2. Took 10 working days to write out 65 pages of highly edited comments in Arial Narrow, just so that I could do it in 60 pages. And there was 2 questions. Should the town regulate RV parking in the front yard? 75% of the people said no. Next question was, should the town allow the parking of more than one RV in a front yard? About 78% said no. So that gave us kind of an indication in that community.
Okay, my thing is, like, I don't think that we should go to a ton of work. Are we making more work than we have to? I didn't like the fact that people are viewing it as unattractive. Like, I didn't like that reasoning. I might not like the neighbor's truck. I might not like if they have a boat. I might not like the junk car that's been sitting there for 5 years. If we're going it just, like you say, you go down a rabbit hole. I think that we regulate so much, like with decks and everything else. Like, I don't know. I don't think that we should start permits and regulating RV vehicles. If there is a safety issue and stuff like that, obviously, it has to be addressed.
So, if we pre-zone property and then get a subdivision application, I have absolutely no choice but to approve it. What happens if that lot is so narrow that any driveway you put on it is gonna be in the corner visibility triangle.
That's why we need it.
That's my bigger concern. In researching this several years ago, and God, I spent way more than 6 weeks on it, I could not find any evidence whatsoever that parking an RV in a front yard was any more dangerous than parking anything else.
That's just it.
Now, there are but if you've switched from a minivan with a low window to a pickup truck with a high box, pay attention that the neighbor's car isn't parked across the street.
And you know, little things like
Especially
even
if it's a Miata.
like I even noticed like when I'm pulling out of my cul-de-sac or whatever, you look down the street, if there's a big truck sitting there, you can't see. It impairs vision. So, you know, I don't know where you stop with it. That's my issue with it.
And that's the dilemma.
Thank you, Councillor Corbeil. Councillor Peterson.
Thank you, Worship. I'm very in favor of this bylaw and the way it's written, and I'm hopeful about community standards into the future that will delineate some of the issues that aren't dealt with here. I think that you do due diligence when you have permits, and I think that we can make sure that that's cost neutral in the end, you know. So, you know, the gentleman who initially brought this to council, this is the third time it's been in front of us, at least since my tenure here. And so the gentleman that brought it forward said, people who are parking RVs in storage are paying significantly more than they would pay on any kind of a permit. And I think that that's judicious. So we could do it at a cost neutral, on a cost neutral basis and ensure that that was done. I think that there's also huge due diligence in the fact that you are looking into the landscaping issues that go along with it, and that you have done some really good strategic analysis around what it takes to park a given vehicle in a given spot. And I'm prepared very much now to vote in favor of this and leave it to the people in our community that work for our municipality to do this at no cost to our taxpayers and move forward and give people the opportunity to park their RVs where they need to park them, and let it take its course and see where it takes us.
Thank you, Councillor Peterson. Deputy Mayor Bauer.
Thank you, Councillor Peterson, for that. I've had a real paradigm shift here. I think I went into this thinking that I was not going to be in favor of the bylaw. I didn't realize that as a community, if we have the opportunity for people to park their RVs on their space, on their properties, that's actually inviting more people and making our community more attractive. And so as a small town that is, you know, pushing for economic development and trying to find a unique niche of where we fit and how we are unique compared to other communities, why not strive to promote this as something that people can come here and experience this. So I have changed my view. I'm now in favor of this bylaw. But I do wish to just ask you one question, Werner. I would like to know, what are the tax implications in terms of an assessment on a property? If a homeowner puts in a pad for their RV, does it increase or decrease their property value?
I have no idea. I think, I just don't know.
Depends who's buying it.
Okay.
I mean, I would assume that adding $10,000 worth of concrete is going to increase the value of the house, but it's a market thing, right?
And would it increase their tax assessment as well?
Probably not.
It would be a neutral. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Bauer. My last question, Werner, is would you say that this land use bylaw that we're considering would act further as a kind of an informal or another control for ensuring that the driveway is approved and good for RV parking? Would you say that it actually complements what a community standards bylaw would serve to do?
Absolutely.
That's what I was thinking.
You know, I mean, there's a property just down the street from me that has a 1950s RV parked on an angle in the front yard because it's zero-scaped.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's become so ubiquitous that bylaw enforcement doesn't keep up with it. And so I think and we've had we've had real challenges. I mean, people have ripped out curbs and sometimes not a small amount. Sometimes hundreds of feet of curb. And, well, you don't regulate driveways. Okay.
Okay, thank you. That helps me a lot. Appreciate that. So we have a motion for second reading on the table. We've had our discussion. All in favor? And opposed? So we have 5 in favor, 1 opposed. And that brings us to Councillor Peterson.
I move that council give third and final reading to land use bylaw, amendment bylaw number 18-25.
Thank you. We have a motion for third and final reading. All in favor? Opposed? So we have 2 opposed and 4 in favor. Thank you. Pardon me? Oh, sorry, Werner, you're staying here for the, for the wastewater bylaw. I was trying to think, okay, we just voted, why are you still there?
Yeah, I can tell.
I didn't mean it that way, Tracy. But thank you and welcome again. We're dealing with bylaw number 18-10, wastewater bylaw.
So you may recall this was also discussed a while ago, and 2 key questions came up. One was raised by Councillor Sobel, who was, he asked about why is this definition so broad, and I retraced my steps, and it's because the Environmental Protection Act is very, very broad. This is quite a bit narrower because we're not dealing with exhaust into the atmosphere. I didn't particularly like the definition either initially because it is so broad, but when I looked at the alternatives, I couldn't come up with anything better, and this is one of the things that probably one of the very few policies that or provisions that I actually directly plagiarized from the City of Calgary bylaw, knowing their extensive process for reviewing things. The other thing, the other issue was the one that was raised by Councillor Peterson, which was the indemnification, which we've addressed. And I should add one other thing. We did receive some comments from EPCOR, and unless you want to go into details, I'm fully confident that we've addressed everything that they were concerned about. One of the things they had raised was they suggested that the bylaw require that all releases be reported. And yeah, I don't think we want to make that compulsory because given that broad definition, we're going to miss something and then we're going to be on the hook.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments for Mr. Fisher? Is this then going to be coming to us as a, I mean, our recommendation is to consider adopting this bylaw. Okay, Councillor Cox, thank you.
I move that council give first reading to wastewater bylaw number 18-10.
Thank you for that, Councillor Peterson. You've put
Is
it,
that enough?
Councillor Cox, you've put it on the table.
Yes.
All in
Thank you.
favor? Motion is carried. Deputy Mayor Bauer,
I move that council adopt wastewater bylaw number 18-10.
we're looking for second reading.
Second reading.
Oh
That's
gosh,
okay.
that's what I meant.
That's okay.
I move second reading
Thank you.
of wastewater bylaw number 18-10.
Perfect. And we have second reading now, so is there any discussion or comments about that? All in favor? Motion is carried. Councillor Peterson.
I have a question, Your Worship. So do we need to, because we're doing all 3 readings, we need to move consensus at this point before third reading? So I would move consensus on bylaw number 18-10, wastewater bylaw.
Thank you. You've all heard that motion? All in favor?
Unanimous.
Councillor Cox?
Unanimous consent.
Unanimous consent, right? Perfect.
I move that we give third and final reading to wastewater bylaw number 18-10.
Thank you for that, Councillor Cox. You've all heard the motion for third reading. And all in favor? And the motion is carried. Item 10.3, bylaw number 19-03, fees bylaw, amendment bylaw. Mr. Pretzlaff, welcome tonight.
Thank you, Your Worship and Council. I'm here to speak about the recreation fees bylaws that were initially presented to Council in October. After Council, administration presented Council with a recommendation for a 2% increase with a promise to come back to Council with a revised or overall analysis of all our fees and for 2020. That 2% was supported by Council and was passed. Later on that year, we identified that there was due to a clerical error, that instead of 2%, it was actually 12%. Fortunately, we caught that error before any users were charged that, and now at this time we're trying to amend that mistake and pass the 2% that Council approved back in October. This I should note that this is only for the 3 facilities: the aquatic center, the family center, and the civic center. The sports center was there's no errors on that one.
Thank you, Mark, for that. So Deputy Mayor Bauer.
Thank you. I just have a question, Mark, regarding the special needs rates for swimming and the arena. Originally, when I asked for a special needs rate, I was thinking that because the majority of our users are youth, that rate would be a little bit lower. What I'm seeing is that it's the same rate as youth from 7 to 17. And so I'm wondering, did you identify that we have more adult special needs, or what was your thinking with keeping it the same as the youth rate?
These rates have historically been, or these categories have been historically there, and that assessment hasn't been completed yet. So we're just here to correct the mistake that was made in October. So that assessment in terms of what demographic those special need individuals would fall into hasn't happened yet. So that
Okay.
will happen for 2020, and that's when we'll make our recommendations.
Okay, and then along with that recommendation will be the rate. I believe Councillor Peterson recommended that we ask FCSS if there's money for special needs people that come that bring a youth or an adult to a facility, if they also receive a free
That's
admission?
correct. Yes.
Okay. All right, thank you very much, Mark.
Sorry,
Yeah.
Mark, can I just add one thing?
Sure.
Currently, the way we operate is, anyone who brings an aid with them, the aid gets into free in any facility. It's not captured in the fees bylaw, but that's our operating
Yeah.
policy.
Okay, thank you. So we don't advertise that then, Tracy?
We advertise it to those groups, but it's, because it's not a.
They're
fee,
well
doesn't
aware of it.
fit in this bylaw.
Yeah, they're aware, like you say, yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Bauer. Councillor Peterson.
Your Worship, I'd move that Council give first reading to bylaw number 19-03, fees bylaw, amendment bylaw.
Thank you for that, Councillor Peterson. You've all heard the motion. All in favor? Motion is carried. Councillor Corbeil.
Move the council give second reading to bylaw number 19-03, fees bylaw, amendment bylaw.
Thank you for that. And now that we have second reading on the floor, is there any further discussion? Councillor Peterson?
I just, one of the things, and I know that you're looking into this, was the whole idea that sometimes people with, in PDD particularly, have assistance with regards to recreation funding. And so that was where FCSS has been so absolutely imperative to our work. And I just want to say that we probably should have left it at 12%, because honestly, our fees are so low. I'm always amazed when I'm at the pool how many people are here from the city, and families that are connected here for sure. But I just want to point out that when my daughter took 6 of the grandchildren and she was given the cost of $27 or whatever, she said, "Oh my God, each?" And they went, "No, all of you." And so I think that's an indication of what wonderful facilities we have and that are bringing people to our community, and what a wonderful deal it is. And thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Councillor Peterson. So we have a motion for second reading on the floor. All in favor? Motion is carried. Councillor Corbeil. Yeah, I'll make you light up. Oh, Councillor Cox, sorry.
It's fine, Your Worship. I move that council give unanimous consent to a third and final reading of bylaw number 19-3, fees bylaw amendment bylaw.
Thank you for that, Councillor Cox. You've heard the motion. All in favor? And Councillor Montgomery.
I will move that council give third and final reading to bylaw number 19-03, fees bylaw amendment bylaw.
Thank you, Councillor Montgomery. You've all heard that motion. All in favor? And the motion is carried. Thank you very much, Mark.
Thank you.
Much appreciated. And that brings us to urgent business, and under urgent business is 11.1, which is a motion that I'm bringing forward. And there probably will be some discussion on this, maybe some questions or comments, but that's okay. I think for those who are watching or at home or in the public gallery here, welcome, Lloyd. All one of you. Two, sorry, and Magnus is here too now. Basically, to let you know that there are at least a couple of junior A hockey teams that are now interested in relocating to Strathmore. Last year, when I first got elected, I reached out to one of the teams, and there wasn't a lot of interest, but now they've come a knocking on Strathmore's door. And so because we have at least the two teams that are interested in coming here, we've set up an initial stakeholder meeting this Friday at 9:30 a.m. And in our discussion today here at the town office, we felt that since there are potentially some costs associated to the town of potentially having a team move here in the form of a possible change room or a dressing room or in-kind services as far as ice time, that it might be a good idea that the town would take a look at it. So at this point, I'll put the motion on the floor, but to do that, I need to turn the chair over to Deputy Mayor Bauer.
Thank you.
Okay.
So, Your Worship, now that you have taken the mantle of power away, I would like to move that council instruct administration to draft a report for council's consideration on the benefits and drawbacks of having a junior A hockey team in Strathmore for as early as the 2019-2020 hockey season, and that the report be brought back to council for consideration and decision no later than March 6, 2019.
Council, you've heard the motion. Is there any discussion or questions? Councillor Corbeil?
Thank you, Worship. I like the idea of having a junior A team here. My only thought is, before talking to the stakeholders to see if this is, I wouldn't say possible, but if it would be well supported, I wouldn't want administration to go into undue work. You know, I don't want them to put a ton of time into this if it's something that's not going to be supported or very well, I guess, greeted by our stakeholders that already exist in the community. So that was my only thought.
Councillor Corbeil, would you entertain an amendment to the motion that states that after the meeting with the Strathmore Minor Hockey League on Friday, that if that meeting goes well, that council would instruct administration to draft the report afterwards?
For sure, and yeah, that would be fine with me. I would like, actually, to be honest with you, a lot of those stakeholders to take the lead on this. I know that we're going to need administration as far as, obviously, it's going to affect our facility. So in those regards, yes. For, I guess, benefits and drawbacks of having it, I don't necessarily think that would have to come from administration, but I would like to see concrete numbers as to, like, maybe what exactly expenses and money that we're going to have to put into it. So in that regards, I would like to see that.
Do you wish to make that amendment?
That would have to be him, right?
I would just accept it.
Would you accept that amendment, Mr. Councillor Fuel?
I would, but I just had one question of
I don't know what to
administration.
call you
can
now.
call me. That's a good question.
You have not been demoted.
Yeah, I just had, if I could ask Your Worship one question to administration. The purpose for us looking into it would be because we have potential costs we have to incur as a town. So that would be, it would be doing due diligence to ensure that we make the right decision. But I would definitely welcome that friendly amendment to hold off on the work until we see how Friday morning's meeting is taken by the group, the stakeholder group. They may, as a group, decide that this is not the right time, so do you need that to put into words, a friendly amendment? Then I'll look to Councillor Corbeil, I guess, if you want to make a friendly amendment. I'm willing to accept what you were saying.
Oh, even if they start Monday, like even if it's
We can
directed.
just say that as far as.
Yeah, the friendly amendment, maybe even if
With
all
work.
goes well, Friday. Or
Jennifer?
Fine.
Sorry.
That's
Your
not a big
Worship.
deal?
Your worship,
Okay.
Your worship, we really don't need that amendment. That could just be direction.
Okay.
From
Direction
council.
to
Yeah.
administration? Thank you.
And my only other concern is we don't even know really what they would each want. I bet you there would be needs and stuff like that. And I know that there's been teams that have approached some of the organizations already versus the town. I know some have approached the town. I know some have approached council. So, you know, it would be nice to get it all together.
Okay. Councillor Cox, did you have your light on?
Could I say one last
Mr.
thing?
Peel?
I think what I was trying to also achieve with this motion was to show that the town of Strathmore as a municipal government accepts the concept of a junior A team and the potential financial obligations that could arise from it. So it would show, even if this one is not accepted, that perhaps another one would be. So it was kind of like accepting in principle as far as, and I put as early as the 2019-2020 season because I know at least one of the teams wants to start that early. So thank you.
Thank you very much. You've heard the motion. All in favor? Opposed? And that motion is carried. I will pass the meeting back to Mayor
Pass the
Peel.
torch back. Thank you very much. So we have gone through urgent business. 11.1 was my motion concerning the junior A teams, potential location here. Item 12, questions between councillors and council statements. Do we have any of those tonight? Councillor Montgomery.
Thank you, Worship. I would just like to echo Councillor Bauer about I would like to ask the community to support the silent auction at the library that will be happening next month. I think that this will be a really successful fundraiser for them, and and I urge people to come out and support the library. And then the other thing I wanted to bring up was I have been to the walking track twice in the past week with my family. It was $5 for the whole family to go, and I urge the people of Strathmore to stay away from the track so that my family has lots of room. And I hope not to see you all out there.
Well, that's a unique way to encourage fitness and family activities in town for you. Okay, are there any other comments or questions between councillors? Item 13, Jennifer, do we have any administrative inquiries tonight?
Thank you, Your Worship. Yes, you have three. The first is from Councillor Bauer. It reads, it's in regards to, FCSS funding. It reads, can the representatives from FCSS look into possible funding for people who need rides to the Strathmore overnight shelter? There have been a small number of people who have requested one-way transportation. The director of the shelter has not been able to fulfill this duty. The second inquiry is also from Councillor Bauer. It is in regards to the structure in front of the Hi-Ho convenience store. There's a metal structure along the boulevard on Park Lane Drive at the Hi-Ho business. In my opinion, it is an eyesore and has been neglected for some time. If it is town property, could it be removed? If it belongs to the business, is there a process that the owner could be asked to have it taken down? The third administrative inquiry is also from Councillor Bauer. It is in regards to the Strathmore Motor Products Sports Centre and the walking track. A resident of Strathmore and avid runner has brought to my attention that the outside track at the sports center is only 166 meters and not 200 meters, as I told her it would be. Who is responsible for this mistake? Is it the construction firm or the engineers? This did not sit well with me, as it makes me look like I don't know my facts. It also means that runners will have to calculate 166 meters each lap to make 500 meters and 1,000 meters. Why couldn't it just be 200 meters to keep it simple?
Thank you for those, Jennifer and Deputy Mayor Bauer. And that brings us to item 14. Do we have any further items in camera? We do.
I move to go in camera.
Thank
Your
you very
Worship.
much, Councillor Peterson. We have a motion to go in camera at 8:53. Going in camera at 8:53.